Hello, scrappers, recyclers, and those who are interested in investing in precious metals, stocks, and the recycling world. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we talk about precious metals, industrial metals, and all kinds of stuff that revolves around them. We had a weird start to this live stream. I apologize. Not quite sure what was going on there. EV Mux was very slow to get started for the live stream today. Not, I don't know, just really weird start. So, anyway, we are going to go ahead and get right into it now. Uh, by the way, I'm also having a little bit of trouble with the comments showing up. So, give me a minute while the comments load up as well. We're going to get to that one too. All right. So let's get right into our precious metals for the day because we've got a lot to cover today. Our precious metal for today is silver. And as you all know, I am not sponsored by AppMex, but it is a company that I have routinely used to purchase and sell my physical silver and gold. And that's the only way that I recommend that anybody invest in precious metals is to actually hold those precious metals in your hand. Very important. Because if all you have is a paper certificate, then you don't really have that gold or silver, and you could easily be taken advantage of. If you own that gold or silver, you have it in your hand, then it's yours to sell wherever you can and whenever you need to. So that's why I recommend it. All right, so silver, the one day, other than this spike here, the one day was pretty flat. Can't really say a whole lot. It's the weekend, no big deal there. If we look at the 3 day, well, we can see that overall it is up. And in fact, it says it's up by 1.2%. And we can see that right there with that arrow coming up. But again, we've got some spikiness, some volatility going on here, which, that happens, right? Can't read too much into that. For the week, we look at silver, and again, we are overall up. And you can see that for the week, silver was up 2.71%. So not too bad for the silver market, but, it's a week, right? So for the month, silver was down 1.3%. And for the 3 month period, we can see that it was also down again around 3 months. So, if you, depending upon when you bought, you may be a little upset right now. However, for the year to date, and when you hear that term year to date, that means from the 1st of January to where we are now in the year, silver's up 5%, a little over 5%. So that's pretty nice. For the 1 year period, we see that silver is up 27.6%. All right, so that's a real nice rise. And depending upon when you bought silver, you might be pretty happy with these numbers because that's a nice rise for a 365-day period. All right, so as you know, I like to look at the trading economics charts on silver because it allows me to do a few more manipulations with what we're looking at. So here is the 6 month chart, and each candlestick represents 1 day of trading. And again, I'm not going to try to teach you candlestick trading here, but just so that we all understand what we're talking about, let's zoom into this period. The candlestick is this big fat part. You can see where, in this case, it's red. So we know that it opened up here and closed down here. If it was green, that means that it closed higher. So that means it opened here and closed up here. The wicks that you see on the top and the bottom give you the extremes of the highs and the lows for the trading period. Now, if we look at this 6 month period overall, what we can see was this volatility in silver, but overall climbing up. And then she dropped down again, and now it's trying to climb back out again here. So for the 6 month period, you got some volatility that was going on. Um, and that's to be expected with silver and the way the markets are going. Now, overall, we expect that silver will continue to uh, overall increase, but we're going to see some ups and downs here. And let me zoom in on this near the end of the period here and kind of help you out a little bit to show you what I mean. When you see these kind of really small signals right here, right? These are when the candle is flat like that. That's called a doji. When you see these, that means that there isn't a whole lot of difference between the top and the bottom, and so that kind of signals that something is going on. You can see that very clearly here. The prices were climbing through this period. You had a couple of dojis, and then it started falling off. Started climbing back out. You get some really small, almost dojis here, and it drops off. The same down here at the bottom, you had this really small, not quite a doji, but pretty close, and then it starts climbing up. So we see we've got a couple of really small signals here in these candles. So we're probably going to see some drop off, and then it should climb out again a little bit after that. Now, the question is, do the big analysts agree? So let's go over here to the forecast tab and see what they're saying. And yeah, so they're kind of expecting that we're going to see it drop a bit and then climb back out again, getting up close to the $32 an ounce range. So not bad there. That should be pretty interesting. And what are they saying here? Silver has increased about 5.18 since the beginning of 2025. Yep, we saw that in a previous chart. And they're expecting it to trade in the 29.6 range by the end of this quarter. And looking forward, they estimate it'll trade around $32 an ounce in the 12-month period. And so we're seeing that here. So not a huge rise. There may be some spikiness involved here, but not a real huge rise going on. And that's going to be something to pay attention to as we move forward in this in our scenario here. So I don't know. If I was looking to do some buying and selling right now, I think I would wait right now before I bought, because I think we're going to see some prices go down a little bit so we could buy some silver, and then it'll probably start picking up again a little bit later on. All right, so let's see what kind of. I want to go check the comments here now, see what y'all are saying about silver. Plus, I haven't had a chance to say hi to everybody because, again, EV Mux was a little bit slow to load up comments here today. Really weird start to the stream. So anyway, David Philly, welcome. Scrapping on the Fly, welcome. Plain Scrapper, welcome. Ron Shoot, welcome. Living off the scraps, great to have you here. Let's see, Scrapping Irish is also here. Let's see. And Irish is telling me that we have an issue on YouTube. Interesting. All right. Let me go over and check YouTube real quick and see what we've got going on here. Oh, it says we're still waiting. Well, that's really weird. Let's see. And all right, now it says it's up. Okay. What in the world was going on there, I wonder? This is really weird. Really weird going on here. Let's see. All right. Are we live now? Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Are we live now? Can you all hear me? Please confirm that you can hear me. I think we're good to go now. Okay, so apparently when Evie Mux had that hiccup in the start, it switched between the original link, and we had to use a different link. So I do apologize for that. Not exactly sure what was going on with Evie Mux there and why it got all messed up. Wow, very weird. Very weird. All right, so Anfield, welcome. Scrapping Irish, welcome. Roger, JR Cat, scrapping on the flat. It's like everybody's coming back in here again. Oh man, I'm gonna have to talk to the folks at EV Mux to find out what's going on there. Solers, welcome. Truck fan, welcome. Yeah, you can put that one up as a blooper, truck fan. That'll be our blooper for the day here. Mike, great to see you here. Andrew Powell, great to see you here. Ron, let's see who is Mike's Meltdown. Great to have you here. Yeah, very, very weird. I'm not exactly sure. Not exactly sure what was going on with the stream here. Um, so let's real quick. I'm going to go back over here, and we're going to real quick get through the silver analysis because I want to make sure that that part got captured properly, and I just won't go into as much detail on silver. The bottom line with silver is that right now we're looking at silver in the 30-ish, a little over 30, and we are expecting that, yeah, we'll have a little drop here below 30 into the almost 29, and then we're going to climb back up again, and we're looking at maybe sometime during the year getting back up around 32, but no huge swings. It just looks like there isn't a whole lot to drive silver one way or the other right now. All right. Now, um, we're going to move on now and we're going to get into our next main topic for today, and that's our safety topic. So, the safety topic for today, again, I always bring up the safety topics based on things that have occurred during the week that I observe. So, this isn't just a list of safety things. It's what have I seen that caused me to, bring it to people's attention. So right now, we're going to go talk about trailer safety. Um, so, um, and I had two things happen during the course of the week here that really brought this to my attention. The first one was almost got involved in an accident on the road because two cars ahead of me was pulling a trailer. They did not have their lights hooked up or their lights weren't functional, so they stopped. The car behind them almost ran into them, and I almost ran into the car behind them. So the other thing that I saw was a trailer, and you see this all the time at the scrapyard. This trailer was way overloaded and just should not have been driving around like that. Now, it's not the trailer you see here in the picture. I used this picture because it's really important to help me to tell the story of uh, trailer safety and the things to consider about trailer safety. So one of the most important things that I want to bring to people's attention is when you think of trailer safety, it's not just the trailer, it's the system. And the system is this combination of your vehicle and the trailer. So when you think about it that way, you start to think a bit more about the overall aspects of the trailer safety that are important. Now, um, you you have to pay attention to, and I want to do this with the lines like this and like this. So the first thing you need to think about is your truck, your vehicle, right? And you need to think about how much weight you're putting on your vehicle itself. So you need to know how much weight your vehicle can handle in and of itself. And it's very easy to find that. It'll be in your owner's manual. You can look it up online. They will always have something that tells you not just your gross vehicle weight, but how much load your vehicle can handle. And if you've got a pickup truck of any reasonable size, that's probably 1,000 or more pounds. Um, so you need to know what kind of load your vehicle can carry. The next the next vehicle thing is going to be right here on this part, your hitch and the way it's configured to your vehicle. So you'll have a number in your owner's manual on your car stats that will tell you the towing capability of your vehicle. So what your vehicle can tow. And then when the hitch is installed, when the trailer package is installed, you want to make sure that's done by a professional so it's mounted properly to the vehicle frame so that you can appropriately tow the weight that you're going to tow. Now, let's get over to the trailer. So, of course, you have to worry about the load that the trailer can handle. And, if you're talking a single axle or a double axle, you then also want to be thinking about how much you distribute the weight in the trailer. Generally speaking, you want to have about 60% in front of the axle and the rest behind the axle. The main thing that you're trying to do is prevent the axle from pulling up on the tongue, which can be a safety issue. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. So try to distribute the weight pretty evenly with a little bit more towards the front than in the back. And if your trailer is going to be hauling a lot of weight, you want to make sure that you have a trailer braking system. It's not that important for small trailers, lightweight things, but if you're moving down the road at speed and you've got a ton of material at speed behind you and you brake your truck and slow down, you don't want all this inertia running into you back here, right? So you want to make sure that if you have a heavy trailer, that it has its own braking system. And if it does have a braking system, you want to make sure that your safety release is installed so that if the trailer detaches from the vehicle, it will brake and not just keep rolling on and causing even more problems for you. All right, now another thing that you need to think about with your trailer is the tongue weight. And tongue weight is pretty simple. That's just what it says. It's the weight of the tongue pushing down on the trailer hitch. Now, the reason why that's important is because that tongue weight will be added to whatever is in the back of your truck. And so you're going to have this weight pushing down here. And if that lifts up the front, if your tongue weight is too heavy and it lifts up the front, you're going to have a hard time controlling the vehicle and driving it and steering it. If your tongue weight is actually the other way around, your trailer could be unstable and wobbling around behind you. So that is something else that you want to pay attention to. And, they've got some really fancy tools that you can use to measure the tongue weight when you attach your trailer. That's pretty cool if you have, automatic scale on it. Another thing that you can do if you've got concerns about that is you can even use your own bathroom scale. and measure it, right there. Or you can use one of the fancy scale methods for your tongue weight. Um, you'll get to know the feel of the vehicle and the stuff you're putting in it. And I suspect that for most people, this isn't a huge issue, and it's more important if you're going to be traveling any distance with your trailer rather than just a quick trip to the scrapyard. But all these things factor in. Now, remember, I spoke about the reason why this was an issue for me was because, or came to my light, was because this trailer didn't have its brake lights. So you want to make sure that you have connected everything correctly. So that's going to be, your trailer connections here. And then when you connect your trailer, test the lights, make sure the blinkers are working, make sure the brake lights are working, all this stuff back here. And your chains. When you connect this, you want to make sure that your chains are in place. So your safety chains are supposed to be crossed before they're connected to your vehicle. And the idea behind the safety chains is that if the trailer becomes detached from the vehicle, it won't become incompletely detached. Your chains will be able to at least hang on to the trailer so that you can do a somewhat controlled stop of the trailer. When you attach, make sure that you have the right size hitch for the ball or the right size ball for the hitch, because you can certainly imagine that if you have a hitch that's too big for the ball, then it's going to not be good. If the hitch is too small for the ball, you're probably not going to be able to get it on there in the first place. Now, regular maintenance is also very important. You've got axles. So you've got the axles here. You want to make sure that those are properly greased and lubricated. Your tires are properly inflated, that they're not worn out and about ready to pop, because especially if you have a single axle trailer and you lose a wheel, that's going to be real trouble. But even with a dual axle trailer, if you lose a wheel, it's going to get your attention, and you're going to need to pull over and do something about it before you can keep going. So you've got some real issues, to think about when you're hauling your trailer. And, I just think that frequently what happens is folks get too used to their trailer. They get so used to doing the same thing over and over and over and over again that they just forget to a step. And so in the Navy, we always used checklists, whether it was on a plane or on a ship or the submarine. You had checklists to make sure that you didn't forget an important step. And I would say that if you are hauling a trailer, you should make yourself a checklist and make sure that you're going through the checklist to do all the things that you're supposed to do. I know it sounds a little bit excessive, but the first time that you forget to do something important, like connect the brake lights or strap down your load properly, or check those things, that's when you're going to have a problem. I don't think I mentioned strapping down the load properly. How many times have y'all seen stuff falling off of trailers when you're heading into the scrapyard, or on the way there or something like that? So that's another thing. And a checklist. I know it sounds like overkill, but really, you ought to think about having a checklist. If you're routinely hauling a trailer, have a checklist just to make sure you don't forget something. It's really not that big a deal. All right, so let's see, what do we got going here for comments so far on the trailer subject. So let's see here. I'm going up here. I'm trying to find where we begin. All right, so I think. All right, chain. All right, so that's right. Recycling is asking about chain hooks. So we talked about chain hooks. Very important part. Make sure you don't forget those. Everyday Sellers is saying it would be a disaster if she tried to haul a trailer. I tell you, one of the things that new people that are new to hauling trailers really ought to do is rent a trailer, a U-Haul, or whatever your local rental service is. Rent one of their smaller trailers, drive it around, get used to it. Go to a parking lot, an empty parking lot on the weekend or something, and practice parking and turning it and maneuvering it. And also practice with both a single axle and a double axle. Practice when it's empty, when there's no one around. You're still gonna, if you're new to backing a trailer, you're still gonna have some issues with it. But at least if you practice it for a while, you'll be a little more comfortable with it. Oh, let's see. Old suspension can carry as much as new suspension. If your suspension is blown, you got some real issues, because then the vehicle is carrying it, not the suspension. So, that's a general vehicle maintenance and issue and concern. So I would be, or unless you're saying that the newer suspension systems can carry as much as the older ones, which, yeah, I mean, it just depends on what kind of suspension you have. Uh, oh, and here we are on the turning thing. When backing up, left is right and right is left. Yeah, that's an important one. Practice your backing up. Make sure you understand it. Roger is saying that a double axle trailer in Illinois has to be brake assisted. Yeah, so there's a very good point too. Understand the laws of your state when it comes to what is, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do when it comes to trailers. Let's see. Yep, make sure your brakes work. Yep, that's a good one. Give yourself extra time to slow down. A very, very important part. I couldn't agree more. Oh, let's see. Let's see. Truck fan is saying if your trailer is butt heavy, you'll have both control issues and risk the thing turning into an angry. Yeah. Yep. That's also a. I like how you put that. An angry torpedo. Oh. Uh, oh, Richard. Oh, Richard. Oh my God, man. Yeah. That's a good way to end up with a knife in your chest in the middle of the night. That's right. Recycling is given a little hint here for backing up the trailer. You grab it at 6 o'clock or, the bottom of the wheel, and it makes it easier to think about how you're turning. Yep. Good tricks there. Lots of good tricks there. And I tell you what, it's funny. It's been so long since I've driven a trailer or backed a trailer. I think before I haul anything now, I would go get an empty trailer and go do, sort of get my brain back into gear because I haven't hauled a trailer in quite some time. So really, really, yeah, really, really need to get practicing here if I'm going to be doing any trailer load stuff. That would be such a weird thing to see your trailer pass you on the traffic. Oh man, I mean, I think I saw that in an insurance company commercial where the trailer went past it. But yeah, yeah. Um, Mike's Meltdown is saying that if you use a folding trailer, make sure the clevis pin's in place. Had that happen on the highway with a boat trailer. Oh yeah, you know, a lot of boat trailers down in Florida, and I remember seeing one of those. And boy, yeah, I bet you that got some people's attention. Grease. Oh yeah, Roger saying grease the wheel bearings on schedule. He almost lost one going 65 in the highway. He saw the smoke in the rearview mirror and pulled over to check it. Yeah, that would be bad, bad. And that's one of those preventive maintenance things, right? Because if you start to see the smoke, you are that axle is trash. So yeah, make sure you're greasing your bearings on schedule. All right. Well, really good comments and discussions on trailers, and trailers are such an important part of what we do in scrapping so many used trailers that you really want to be paying attention to that. You really want to be thinking about trailers and hauling the trailers. Really good comments there, and I appreciate everybody's feedback and input. I've had a lot of people who have said to me, you need to get a trailer. You should be using a trailer. One of the problems that I'm running into right now with the facility that I have is there isn't a whole lot of parking. And with the HVAC guys and the crawl space overhaul guys on either side of me, with their trucks and their dumpsters, man, it's a challenge back there with a trailer. So I'm really, I know I need a trailer, but I may need to wait a little bit on a trailer. All right, so it is time to get on to our discussion of our industrial metal. And our industrial metal today is a really important one. It the Let's see. Wait a minute. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do two things at once here, and I'm not doing either one very good. So, in the the industrial metal that we're talking about today is aluminum, and aluminum has been on kind of a weird ride here. We've had a lot of volatility here. We're looking at the 1 year chart right now, and let's get the candlestick put together here. Right there we go. So here's our candlestick. So this is a 1 year period, and each candlestick represents 1 day of trading. And what you can see is we had a whole lot of volatility going on here near the end of the year there, from September up through December. Lots of ups and downs going on. Let's zoom in here a little bit on the end of the year. You can see these candlesticks are showing that even within a couple of day period, they covered each other. They were the same price up, same price down going into this period. And now we've had sort of a slow drop off here. So, aluminum is really important, in our modern society. We use it in construction, we use it in vehicles, we use it in electronics. We even use it we use it in medicine, right? We use it in beverage containers and other types of containers. So aluminum is just such an important metal to our modern society. When we look at the discussion here, this is very telling to me. When I see a summary of aluminum where all they talk about is it increased 0.65% since the beginning of the year, and that's according to the trading on contract differences. And then they talk about the historical high. That's telling me that they don't even know what to tell you right now. They're just not even sure, right? So here you got a group of really smart people, and they're not even sure what to tell you right now. If we take a step back and we say to ourselves, let's look at sort of the macroeconomic structure of the world and what's going on with things right now, we can we can expect that we're still going to need a lot of aluminum, right? We're still building things, we're still doing infrastructure projects. Whether you think that the electrification of the world is going to slow down or speed up, I don't think really makes a huge amount of difference, because even if we don't make this huge shift to electric vehicles, uh, people want better gas mileage for their vehicles, and that means you need a lighter weight vehicle. And a lot of companies are going with more and more aluminum in their vehicles. You've got pickup trucks that are aluminum body pickup trucks, right? So um, it's really important that aluminum as a metal in our industry is it's just it's not going away, right? And so when we look at uh, the forecast for aluminum, let's just go ahead and pop over here to the forecast for aluminum, and we see this gray line here saying that aluminum is going to climb for the year. By the way, this is U.S. dollars per ton, spelled TONNE, which is a metric ton, which I think is just hilarious because you're using U.S. dollars and then a metric measurement. So how's that for mixing our measuring scales? But a metric ton is 2,204.6 pounds, as opposed to an imperial ton, TON, which is 2,000 pounds. So just keep that in mind. Pretty close. Anyway, they're saying that aluminum is going to go up, and they're saying, the a lot of the sources I'm looking at are saying 6%. Now, I found some really interesting sources that talk about aluminum going up from the 2004 level of 193.5 billion in market size. This is market size, to 289.9 billion in 2032. So if you look at the CAGR for that change, and the CAGR, by the way, is just the combined annual growth rate. So it's a fancy way of saying how much did the price of aluminum have to grow on average across that period to get to the level at the end of the period. You're looking at almost 6% average growth throughout that period, right? So they're saying that for the next 6 or 7 years, aluminum is going to continue to grow almost 6% a year. So that's good news for us, right? What that tells us is that the value of our aluminum scrap, and after all, that's really what we're talking about, the value of our aluminum scrap will continue to go up. However, we're also going to see this kind of volatility continue, because aluminum as an industrial metal is driven by industrial contracts. And so you're going to see that continued up and down. And so you've got not only the growth of industries, but the geopolitical consequences of potential tariffs and those kind of things that play into what's happening with aluminum. So you're going to see volatility in the aluminum market, but overall, it will continue to slowly rise. So for us as scrappers, the bottom line that I would say is just keep your aluminum moving. I treat aluminum as a cash flow metal, so I just keep it moving. And some of the best aluminum to keep moving are aluminum cans. And it's interesting how in the industry parlance, they even have an acronym UBC, used beverage cans. And they have pricings and future contracts and stuff for aluminum cans, or UBC, which is really, really interesting. Um, the that it's such an important part of the industry that they have their own code for it. Um, Now, here in the United States, I thought it's interesting that, we were generally recycle 50-ish percent of our aluminum cans. Some years better, some years not so good. Um, but aluminum is pretty much forever recyclable, right? So um, what that means is that, and I thought this was a pretty interesting statistic. They said that pretty much 75% of all the aluminum that humans have produced is still in circulation somewhere. Yeah, there's a lot of aluminum that got stuck in our dumps and our trash sites before we started recycling aluminum, or probably still goes to landfills because people aren't paying attention. But we there's a lot of the aluminum just keeps getting recycled, and so that's really important. And here in the United States, we really need to do a better job of recycling our aluminum cans, because we're only doing maybe half of what's out there. Um, and the reason why recycled aluminum is going to continue to be so important to the industry is because it uses a lot less energy. And this is going to play to a question that I'm going to ask here. When I tell you that recycling UBC, or used beverage cans, uses 90% less energy than if they make cans out of virgin aluminum, and then I ask the question, why do dry years in China decrease the amount of aluminum that's available? You should be able to put two and two together, get five, and answer the question. Why does the amount of aluminum produced in China decrease when they have dry years? Now, chew on that one a little bit. Go ahead and drop your comments why you think China produces less aluminum when the weather is dry. And while we're doing that, I want to go see what kind of comments folks have brought up about aluminum here, and that'll get us to the comments on what's going on. So let's see, aluminum. What kind of comments do we have on aluminum? Ba, 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 ba. Plain scrapper, $15 per can, 74 cents a pound. Are you sure you mean $15 a can? That seems like that's a lot of money for a can, for an aluminum can. Different kind of kegger, JR Cat. Different kind of kegger. But I was waiting. I knew somebody was going to have to do that. Truck Fan brings up a good point here when he's talking about what the returnables bring in. If you are in a state or a location or a country that has returnables, your cans will be marked with some sort of code that a deposit was paid by you probably, or someone, when they bought that can, and then you can get that deposit back by taking it to a return center. When a country or a county or a city or a state has an organized deposit return system, the percentage of cans returned goes up significantly. And that just makes a lot of sense, right? If somebody knows they paid a deposit for a can, they're going to want that back. And even if they're just a tourist and they bought something and then they put it out in the trash or on the something like that, the locals will know that they can get money for that can, so they're going to try to get it. Anywhere where there is a deposit return value placed on cans, you're going to see a much higher percentage of aluminum returned. That's Right made the comment that Ford pickup trucks are aluminum, but not Chevys. Oh, not Chevys. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Chevys weren't aluminum yet. I wonder how long that's going to take. Okay. Let's see now. We're going back down through more of the comments on aluminum. While I'm going back down through the aluminum. Oh, no, JR Cat. I am not going to be driving around looking for aluminum for the same reason that I don't do street scrapping up here, because these roads are pretty small up here and a lot of them are very windy. And to stop on the side of the road to pick something up is a recipe for disaster. So that's one of the reasons why I don't think there's much street scrapping up here. But also because there's no bulk pickup days where you would even find the stuff out there. And it's been interesting with what we've been going through after the storm, because you've got these trucks with the cranes with the grabbers picking up the debris on the side. And there are some times where the traffic will be stopped because the company with the grabber claw didn't think about having somebody to direct traffic around them, and they're holding up that lane, and it's head on traffic, and oh my god, it's just a disaster sometimes. So no, I am not going to be picking up cans, but I am thinking about saving some cans, um, not cans, but saving aluminum to maybe do some melting projects. So I am going to play around with some melting projects at some point here. Everyday Solars is close on answering the question why why dry seasons in China lead to less aluminum. It does take a bunch of water in the process, but there's another very, very important part of this. You're almost there, Solars. You're almost there. Let's see. No, that has nothing to do with dry counties and drinking. Gah. But that was, that was a funny part. Um, let's see. I'm going down here. Anybody figured out yet? Anybody figured out yet? All right, I'm at the bottom of the list. So here's the thing. When you make virgin aluminum, the process to make virgin aluminum requires a huge amount of electricity. We're talking a lot of electricity. And in China, most of their electricity is made by hydroelectric. So when they have dry seasons, their hydroelectric facilities aren't making as much electricity. And so they can't run the arc furnaces as much as they need to make the aluminum that they need to. So that's why, and I was surprised. I was thinking to myself, really, that can't be, can it really be like, and I read multiple sources that talked about the fact that when there are dry years in China, they're not producing as much electricity, so they tell the plants to not make as much aluminum. I thought that was really interesting. Really, really interesting about how climate can impact what goes on with metals production. Pretty cool stuff, huh? Just really interesting the way that can play out. All right, now, the next thing we're going to do is talk about last week we talked about a Minnesota law that got a lot of attention. And I've had a lot of feedback, a lot of comments, a lot of back and forth with folks throughout the week on scrap laws. So I thought that it would be interesting. We'll see how this works out. Every week, I'm going to talk about the scrap laws for another state. And I'm not a lawyer, and just like I'm not a investment guy that's going to, that's licensed to tell you where you should buy, how to buy scrap. I mean, how to buy investments and stuff. I'm not a lawyer, right? So, and I'm not going to be an expert in your state, but I do want to help point you in the right direction for the laws that are in your state. So we're going to start out. Our first state that I want to bring to your attention is the state of Florida. And if you live in Florida and you're a scrapper, recycler or if you scrap and recycler, that makes you a scrappler. Well, anyway, in the state of Florida, you want to go to the state statutes, chapter 538. And in there, they have different parts. So you have the parts for secondhand dealers, secondary metal recyclers, mail in secondhand precious metal dealers, and secondhand, uh, I'm sorry, the secondhand dealers. That's the start of part one. When I was operating in Florida, because of the definition of a secondhand dealer and a secondary metal recycler, and the way I would resell some parts of computers, I had to have a license for both secondhand dealer and secondary metal recycler. There's a certificate for the SMRs, there's other legal requirements for secondhand dealers. This is a very thorough statute, and like most legal laws, statute documents that you're going to find for U.S. states, you're going to have your definitions. There's going to be something about record keeping requirements. They're going to tell you what kind of inspection requirements. There's going to be some sort of holding period. Of course, they're going to tell you what the penalties are. And if it's a stolen good, how you can get your stuff back. They're going to tell you how to register to do business in the state. They're going to talk about who has what powers, duties, and responsibilities. They're going to tell you what's prohibited, and then what the local folks have to do to control you as a secondhand or secondary metal recycler. These are sort of large, broad, generic categories. Each state is a little bit different in what they define and how they regulate and what you're required to do. But one of the big things, and this was a big difference when I came up here to North Carolina, was I no longer had to have a secondary metal recycler certificate. So I thought that was really interesting. And it's interesting because they when you look at how they write things in law, you can see how people have tried to get around the subject. So like right here, they talk about acquire. What do they mean by acquire? Here, wait a minute, let me change the color because that one's not too clear here. But how do you define what acquire means, right? So by purchase, consignment, or trade. And you just know that at some point somebody got picked up, charged with stealing something, and they said, "Oh, I didn't steal it, I acquired it." So these laws are written to try to cover all the bases, and every time someone tries to find a way around that basis, then they rewrite the law, or they adjust the law. They define precious metals as any item containing any gold, silver, platinum, or combination thereof, excluding any chemical or any automotive, photographic, electric, medical, dental, of electronic parts. So that is kind of important, right? Because when you're talking about catalytic converters, and they treat those as the automotive scrap, and they have they have laws in Florida about that. We go take a look at that real quick. But the bottom line is, precious metal is not. They have a different category for that. As you go through the laws here, they tell you about secondhand goods. They tell you what a transaction is. You get down here to the record keeping requirements. And this was about to become onerous for me because if I bought or sold things locally, I was going to have to do all this stuff about taking pictures of the people and recording and a picture of what it was I bought, and the model number and the serial number and the color of it, and oh my God, it was a lot of paperwork. And the reason that that was there is because if the stuff ever got stolen, then they wanted to make sure they could go back and find it and figure out who, they're not saying that you as the secondhand dealer or the SMR violated the law, but if you bought something and you thought that person had a legitimate right to sell it to you and then it turned out to be stolen, at least the police could go look at all this stuff and try to trace it back to the thief or use it in court to prosecute the thief. So you've got the inspection of the records, which means that you have to hang on to them for a certain amount of time and that law enforcement can come in and look at those records anytime they need to. And I had the police show up a couple times at the old shark cage in Florida. They were nice. They were the first time it was just to make me aware of the software that the police department was using. And another time there was a big theft and, they were just checking to see if I knew anything about, somebody trying to sell a bunch of a particular kind of thing. I think it is interesting here when you look at the laws, because remember, a lot of people were saying, well, you ought to just prosecute the thieves. So here they say that any person who knowingly violates any provision of this chapter commits a misdemeanor of the first degree, and it's punishable by a fine not to exceed $10,000. All right. And then it's punishable by whatever that code is. I'd have to look that up. I'm not exactly sure what that is. So, and remember that this would be in addition to if you were stealing something, then you would be charged with one of the theft laws on top of that. And then they talk about how you can get your stolen goods back. This was what I had to do when I was in Florida. I had to register as a secondhand dealer and a secondary metal recycler. Florida had a way to do that, and I don't have to do that up here in North Carolina. They talk about acts and practices that are prohibited, which mean, and it's like I wasn't allowed to do business with anybody who was under the influence of drugs or alcohol, anyone under 18, anyone using somebody else's name. It was, I had to pay taxes on the stuff, right? So you had that going on. Now that was all the secondhand dealers, secondary metal recyclers, same kind of stuff going on here. But I want to go down here to, they controlled your method of payment. So if you were going to pay somebody over $1,000, then you had to do it in a check. You couldn't do it in cash. It had to be a check. And you had to have a street address for the check. They had the laws about the stolen and regulated metals and how to get those back. Here was the process for registering. And in order to register for an SMR, the biggest thing was you had to do the paperwork and you had to get a criminal background investigation. And that was like, I don't know, $100 or something like that. It was just a one-time thing that you had to do. But you had to register every year as an SMR. They talk about what you can and cannot do. And it's funny because you have certain hours and days of the week. So you cannot purchase regulated materials or restricted metals before 7 in the morning or after 7 p.m. And that would drive when scrapyards were open, right? Really interesting in Florida. Plus you had, this was a big one here, was what was allowed and what was not allowed. They talk about these restrictions, right? And so, manhole cover, electric pole, utility hardware, guardrails, street signs. It's interesting because I would get street signs from construction companies. Because I was an SMR, the yards would buy them from me, but they would make a note of it because then the police would come to me if street signs were missing, right? Now, it's one thing for a sign to be, like a typical construction kind of street sign. That was not a big deal. But if it was the name of a street, well, that would be a big deal. They might wonder about that. Funeral markers, historical markers, railroad equipment. One of the ones that I find is interesting because it's the same here in North Carolina. Beer kegs. You can't buy and sell beer kegs, and you can't buy and sell shopping carts. So they have some really tight requirements on sharp shopping carts. Yeah, so interesting stuff. And Roger makes the point that in Florida, if you can only sell 2 lead acid batteries at a time, if you're an SMR, you can sell as many as you have. But if you are what they call a peddler, an average citizen coming in off the street, then yeah, you're restricted to 2 at a time. So that's those are some other really interesting nuances about the law. You should, if you're in Florida and you're doing the scrapping, you want to make sure that you review 538, understand this law, pay attention to it. Most scrapyards are really good. If you come in with a controlled item and you don't know it, they'll say, hey, that's a controlled item. We can't take it. And then you can go back and figure out, okay, well, now what do I do with this? Or they'll, most of them understand that, hey, sometimes people make mistakes. There are then some obvious stuff like, if you come in with a manhole cover, well, you had to really work at that. So they're going to ask some questions there. Vehicles are another thing. It's also, you got to have some really, when you bring in a vehicle, there's very strict laws about buying and selling, even a junker, even a scrap vehicle, and catalytic converters. Again, you've got to be able to either prove that it came off of your car or that you're some sort of company or business that would normally get catalytic converters in the course of doing business. Richard is saying that his yard gives him a paper form for proof of ownership. Okay, well, and that's that's what that is the yard is transferring their liability to you. They're making you sign a paper that says you accept responsibility if that was stolen goods. And that way, if the police find it at the yard and the yard says, oh, but Richard said it was his, then they can come after you. So that's what that's all about. Yeah, Roger, I think you're right. I think prohibited scrap is pretty universal from state to state. It'll be interesting as we go through these lists and do some comparisons on how that plays out. Absolutely. All right, so there is one more thing that I want to cover very, very quickly because this is for the investor side of the game. And what I want to talk about is 3M Company. 3M Company used to be a darling of the investment world. A lot of people would invest in 3M because they had a real good dividend and they used to keep that dividend in place year over year over year over year. 3M has really changed gears here in this last year. They lowered the interest rate. You can see here the dividend went down. You can see graphically that it's dropped and it's not forecasted to come back up. So if you own 3M stock and you're keeping it for dividend purposes, I encourage you to go in and take a different look at it, rethink why you're owning it and what you want to do about it. Now, I'm not saying, go sell your 3M stock. There's still some reasonably good reasons to have 3M stock. But if it's just for the dividend, you want to rethink why you have it. You may want to take instead a look at, not those guys, these guys, Snap-on. who is offering a 2.5% dividend, but is a really expensive buy-in price, or Stanley Black & Decker, which has a very reasonable dividend of 4.1% and not too bad of a buy-in price. Yes, there's lots of places where you're going to be able to get 4 or 5% dividend. Just depends upon whether or not you want to have a tool and machinery company in your portfolio. And if you do, Stanley Black & Decker might be the place that you want to go do that. All right, folks. Well, I tell you what, I really, really apologize for the rough start. I got to find out from EV Mux what was going on and why we had a false start on the video today, but that's between me and EV Mux. I appreciate your patience in coming back in again. It is time for us to go across the pond. So if you have autoplay enabled, when I end this stream, Ireland, where we will be joining Scrapping Irish, I'm sure is already in progress, and wanting to know where in the world is Shark Scrapper and the Shiver? What's taking them so long? When is that guy going to shut up already? All right, everybody, I look forward to seeing you over in Ireland. If you have any questions about anything we covered, feel free to ask while we're over in Ireland, because, hey, that's what we do there, right? We follow one, we keep talking, and we explore, well, who knows what. All right, y'all, I'll see you over in Ireland.